Have you ever wondered why you can travel across entire countries in Europe by train? But in America, public transport feels like a gamble. Here's the truth they don't always tell you. In the United States, getting from point A to B without a car can be, well, let's just say, complicated, barely covers it. Hi, I'm Your Name, and welcome back to Moving to America, the channel where I share my real-life experiences as an immigrant navigating life in the USA. Today, I'm pulling back the curtain on one of the most confusing and debated topics for newcomers: public transportation in America. If you're planning your move, dreaming about your new city, or just curious why Americans love their cars so much, you're about to get answers most websites and guidebooks gloss over. Stick with me until the end, because I guarantee you'll leave with insider tips that could save your wallet, your sanity, and maybe even your relocation dreams. So, let's start with a story that perfectly sums up my own shock. I grew up in a city where you could hop on a bus every 10 minutes, and trains connected even the smallest towns. My first week in the US, I walked to the nearest bus stop with hopeful confidence and stood there. 30 minutes passed, then an hour. The bus did finally show up, almost empty, and as I climbed on, I realized, in much of America, you're not just waiting for the bus, you're waiting for a different way of life. Why is it so different? Let's break down the facts, starting with the myth that America doesn't have public transport. It does. In fact, the US operates some of the world's busiest subway and bus systems, like New York City's MTA, Chicago's CTA, and San Francisco's BART. These can be fast, efficient, and a true blessing if you live in those cities. But here's the plot twist. Outside a handful of major urban areas, public transportation can feel fragmented, unreliable, or almost non-existent. If you're picturing the convenience of London's tube or Tokyo's rail network across the entire country, it's time for a reality check. So, what's going on? Why is it so complicated? Let's zoom out. For starters, America is huge. The distances between cities can be mind-boggling, and after World War II, the government poured billions into highways and suburban developments, not trains and tracks. The result? Cities sprawled outward, and cars became essential. Today, about 87% of Americans drive to work, compared to just 5% who use public transit. But where does that leave you if you don't have a car? Let's talk about the different experiences depending on where you live. Big cities, your best bet. If you're moving to New York City, congratulations! The subway is a lifeline, open 24/7 with hundreds of stations and more than 5 million daily riders. It's a little old and sometimes quirky, rats included, but it works. The same goes, to an extent, for cities like Chicago, Boston, San Francisco, Washington DC, and Philadelphia. The systems aren't perfect. Expect occasional delays and sometimes less than pleasant conditions late at night, but you can absolutely live car-free. Pro tip: in these places, get a reloadable travel card, MetroCard, Ventra, Clipper, etc. as soon as you arrive. And don't be afraid to ask locals for navigation tips, they're usually happy to help. Mid-size and small cities, the reality check. Move outside those big metros though, and things get patchier. Many cities, think Atlanta, Dallas, or Los Angeles, do have buses and sometimes rail, but the routes are limited. You might find a bus comes every 30 or 60 minutes, not every few minutes. Transfer times can be unpredictable, and service often ends early. A trip across town could take an hour by transit, that would be 15 minutes by car. Then there are entire towns and suburbs where a bus stop might actually mean a sign on the side of a road, and buses come only a few times a day. Miss one? You're stuck. This isn't to say no one uses or loves public transit outside New York. Over 7 million Americans use it every day. But as an immigrant, know that in many areas, it's not the backbone of daily life. It's more like a safety net for those without other options. Trains, the dream, and the letdown. You might have seen Amtrak on a map and thought, great, America has trains. And it does. But forget the fast, frequent bullet trains you find in Europe or Asia. Distances are huge. For example, the Amtrak ride from Chicago to San Francisco is epic. Yet it takes more than 50 hours and can cost almost as much as flying. There are bright spots. The Acela Express in the Northeast Corridor is genuinely fast between Boston and Washington, D.C., and some local commuter rails are reliable for, say, daily trips from New Jersey to Manhattan. But nationally, trains are mostly for scenic, slow travel or commuters, not for getting anywhere quickly. Public transit and social dynamics. Here's a nuance most guides miss. In many parts of America, public transit is seen as a last resort, not the first choice. Car ownership is tied to status and independence, so buses and trains often get less funding and lower priority. As a result, buses can be poorly maintained, shelters rare, and amenities limited. But, and this is important, attitudes are changing. More young professionals, environmental advocates, and city planners are pushing for better systems, and you're starting to see new light rail lines and revamped bus networks in places you might not expect, like Phoenix or Dallas. Survival tips for new arrivals. Don't panic. Here are strategies every newcomer should know. Research before you rent or buy. Look up your city's official transit website and try planning a fake commute. Use apps like Google Maps, Transit, or Citymapper to check real-time schedules. Consider alternatives: biking, ride shares, Uber, Lyft, or even carpooling apps may fill gaps. If you're committed to not owning a car, let that guide your choice of where to live. Even within cities, some neighborhoods are much more transit-friendly than others. Join local Facebook or WhatsApp groups for immigrant communities. They often share insider info on the best bus or train routes. So, is public transport in America as bad as the headlines say? The truth is, it's complex. In some cities, you'll wonder why anyone drives. In others, you'll discover what Americans really mean when they say, "You need a car to live here." Now it's your turn. Have you experienced American public transport, or are you worried about the car-free life? Let me know in the comments. What's your biggest question or fear about getting around in the US? Smash that like button if you learned something new today, and don't forget to subscribe to Moving to America for more immigrant perspectives on everyday American life. Thanks for watching. Remember, every move is an adventure. Even if it comes with a bus schedule, you need a degree to decode. See you in the next one.
Thanks for watching. We hope you found this video helpful as you prepare for your move to the United States. If you found value in the information and advice provided, please consider supporting the podcast on Patreon. Your donations will allow us to continue creating new episodes and videos to help even more people with their relocation to America. Just visit patreon.com/movingtotheus to sign up. Until next time, best of luck with your move.